Hi, scientists. Today we're going to be doing investigation 3.3, which is asking the focus question, what happens when water gets on fabric? Well, you know how to do this one because we've done it with wood and we've done it with paper. It says, in today's investigation, we learned about what happens when water gets on different kinds of fabric. Write and or draw in the boxes below to answer each question. So we're looking to find out in our fabric investigation, what fabric absorbed the most water? What fabric did the water bead up on? How does the fabric feel after one drop of water? And what fabric would be good for a raincoat? Then it says, write one thing you learned about fabric. I learned, and then your answer. So today we are going to investigate water's effect on fabric. We have our 10 different kinds of fabric. We have the knit, the burlap, the fleece, the terrycloth, the corduroy, the denim, the nylon, the satin, the seersucker, and the organza. Those are our 10 different fabrics. We're going to start with the terrycloth. And we already talked about the fact that towels and bathrobes are made from terrycloth. So what do you think is going to happen when we drop one drop of water on the terrycloth? Let's look. Look at what it did. Did you see it soak right in? Take a look. Let's look on the other side. It soaked right in. It soaked right in. Let's take another one. Let's do the knit next. Oops, I think I dropped two on. That soaked right in too. Turn it over, see, went right through, soaked right into there. Let's do it with the burlap. Oh, I did two again. What's happening to the burlap? Did it soak right in? No, it's kind of beating up a little bit, right? It's beating up. All right, we'll let it sit there and see what happens. Let's do the fleece. Oh, looks like it's beating up a little on the fleece too. Okay, let's move over to the denim. Oh, what is it doing on the denim? Is it beating up? It's kind of beating up on there too. Let's see what happens on the corduroy. Look at the corduroy. It's soaking in, but it's taking a little more time. Look at, do you see it? Kind of spreading out there a little bit. The drop is spreading out and soaking in. Do you see that? Okay, let's look at the satin. Wait, let me see which side of the satin I'm on. There's the shiny side. We want the shiny side. There's the satin. Look what it's doing. Beating up for now. Let's take the nylon. I don't know if it matters which side. I'm going to take the nylon. Take a look at that. That's beating up. How about the seersucker? Nope, that's absorbing. Do you see it? Let's see. Oh, no, wait. It's beating up. It's not really absorbing as much. And finally, here is the organza. Beating up on the organza, too. Let's go back and now revisit our fabrics. The knit, it had soaked right in. We saw it soak right in from the very beginning. The terrycloth soaked in, but it absorbed the water, and really it doesn't feel so wet. The knit kind of feels wet. That would be uncomfortable to wear. The fleece now has absorbed the water. Oh my goodness. Doesn't feel wet much at all either. The fleece absorbed the water quite nicely. Now the burlap has absorbed the water. It had beat it up. Look, it went right through, actually, because there's so many holes in the burlap. The denim now has soaked it in. Do you see? The corduroy has soaked in. All those ones that had beat it up are now soaked in. Let's see. These last four, the nylon, the satin, the seersucker, and the organza, it's beaded up on. There, it's still beaded up. The seersucker also is beaded up. It hasn't really absorbed into the seersucker. The nylon, the satin as well. It's beaded up. Let's see how they feel. The knit feels wet. The terrycloth feels a little bit wet too. Not so bad. Actually, nope, that feels a little wet too. The burlap feels a little wet. The denim also feels wet. The corduroy feels quite wet. We still haven't absorbed into any of these fabrics. Let's see how this feels, the organza. The organza feels, now you can see that it's wet. It's hard to it's smeary and wet. Now the whole thing feels wet. Ugh, yucky and wet. Let's see about the satin. Let's see. And there we go. We have a big wet spot on it. And it did come through on the other side. You can see that the whole piece of material now feels wet. The whole thing feels wet. What about the seersucker? Let's see. Kind of feels wet also. Now the nylon, look at this, watch this. Watch this. If you go like this, can you tell that this has ever been wet? It looks dry, never came through to the other side, and now the whole thing feels dry. The water came right off. You could keep putting water on the nylon. You could put a bunch of water on there. It's going to continue to bead up and not soak through. The nylon is made to repel water, to not absorb the water. And if we dry it off, we could dry it off with the terrycloth, because the terrycloth is made to be a towel. It's made to absorb. This feels completely dry again. The nylon is made to stay dry when it gets wet. The water beads up and comes right off. What absorbed right away? The terrycloth absorbed right away. The knit absorbed right away. I would say those were the only two that absorbed right away. Let's see if we drop some more water, a whole thing filled with water on both. Let's see what happens. We'll turn over the terrycloth. It still has that one stain. The knit, it kind of, look at the spots. The terrycloth kind of soaked right through. The knit spread out the water. And when we feel it now, the knit is really soaky wet. And the terrycloth really feels like it absorbed the water. Because terrycloth is the material they make towels from, I'm going to say on our sheet, what fabric absorbed the most water? I'm going to say that it was the terrycloth. How does the fabric feel after one drop of water? That depends on the fabric, but we're going to say it feels wet. Most of the fabric felt pretty wet, except for the nylon. We can actually, if we want to write, nylon stays dry. Nylon stays dry. And then others feel wet. And then what fabric would be good for a raincoat? Remember that one that feels dry, the water beads up and runs right off, and then it feels dry again. That nylon would be good for a raincoat. We're going to write that. And then write one thing you learned about fabric. What did you learn? You're going to write, I learned, and whatever it is that you learned. What I would like you to do is draw a picture of the terrycloth. You can see, you can kind of looks like little hooks on it, or those little loops that you can draw on the terrycloth. And then the nylon, you can draw a picture of the water beating up on it, maybe. And then maybe here you might want to draw a raincoat. And then make sure you've written what you learned. And then you're done. What you can do in your science notebook is put a strip of glue right on the top of the paper and then glue it into your science notebook sideways so that you can fold it. You can take your fabric and your dropper and you can try this experiment at home if you're allowed. When you are done, please dry the fabric out. Make sure the fabric is all dry again. And then please send the fabric and the eyedropper back to school in a bag. I hope you enjoyed learning about what happens when fabric gets wet. See you next time.